For all intents and purposes, this anime is probably the peak of slice of life comedies. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb Initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week I'll be talking about the first season of Kobayashi-san no Maid Dragon, or in English, Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid. Before I even start, some disclaimers, spoiler alerts. I'll be talking about everything that happens in the first season in this review. I will not be talking about the manga, and the second season I'll be talking about the next episode. In terms of spoilers, I have to give the spoiler alert because I will be talking about everything that happens really. Though I will not enter so much detail, I think that this is an anime more focused on the journey rather than the end goal. So for that matter, I don't, and also it does not have any plot twists or anything, so I don't think that it actually demands a spoiler alert, even though I'll explain everything, because I think the presentation is much more important than the other stuff. Also, and I think that I need to add this here before everything, I will be talking about the, let's say, historical context of what happened with the second season when I talk about the second season, so next episode, because I don't want this review specifically to be, let's say, spoiled. Oh god. I want to keep this one rather light because the historical context and the other stuff related to what happened with the second season, I think, is kind of a bummer. So I would prefer to leave it to another episode. And as a last thing, I will not be talking about the manga really. I have not read the manga for Kobayashi-san specifically. I have, however, read Chichi, which is, I think, the next work from the author. So I think that I have a good idea on, let's say, their ideas and stuff, their, let's say, works and how they do stuff. But for Kobayashi-san specifically, I have not really read it much. I have seen some pages and stuff, but not really read it. So with those disclaimers out of the way, quick history. Why did I choose to actually watch Kobayashi-san at this point? The anime, the first season at the release, is nearly getting on the 10-year mark. Basically, I saw the announcement for their start of production of the movie, and as such, I just thought to myself, never actually watched the second season, might as well. So I went back and watched the first season, and now I wanted to share a bit because it is way more cute than I remembered. Like, it is veered towards the slice of life comedy kind of thing, and in many ways the nostalgia that hit me when I first watched it again now, specifically with the opening and the other stuff, I was really like, oh my god, man, I had forgotten how great this was. Just to get a few bits off, right? The whole anime is built in such a nice way because it adapts not only the story itself, but also the gags specifically of the manga. The anime is constructed in a structure where it does go through many chapters in little segments of the episode, and even Yonkoma, the little bits that have only 4 frames, generally comedic stuff, they are translated in a Yonkoma format on, let's say, 4 different shots to the same effect that you would have in a manga, and it is done with such tact and really nice awareness of the medium that in many ways I think that they really did an incredible job. It is really hard to not have visual aids for this, but it is something that really gets to the viewer, I think. I'll get more into that as I go through the reviews, but before I start, let's go to the story. So Kobayashi-san no Maid Dragon, basically, this is really like really simple in many ways. Basically, Kobayashi-san is a mid-30s. They don't actually mention her age specifically, but you can kind of grasp that she's kind of mid-30s, salary worker working in Tokyo, the Tokyo region anyways. And one day, after drinking a lot and going through the mountains, after basically going full drunk and stuff, she finds a dragon and basically invites the dragon to her house to be her maid. Next day, she wakes up on a hangover and for one reason or another ends up with a dragon as her maid, though the dragon does not know how to live with humans at the very start. So the maid dragon is called Toru, and she's for the main character for the rest of the anime, the second main character for that matter, for the rest of the anime. And I think the anime itself, you can see that it is episodic, so nothing really changes that much in terms of from one episode to the next, but you can see the overarching plot going on through from the get-go, from the first specifically to the second episode, where we have the introduction of the next character. The first episode is basically the setup of Toru coming to Kobayashi-san's house and starting to live as a maid. So at the first starts really chaotic because Toru for the most part does not know how our world works. She's dragon coming from another world, another dimension, and as such she needs to learn how to deal with 21st century kind of stuff. And even more than that, and this is our coming right back to the studio, one of the works that they do a lot, and something that is pretty similar, that is something that we can see the inspiration of somewhat, is some of the gags come straight from, I would say, Nichijou. I remember watching Nichijou some years back, and Nichijou is something that when you watch it the first time, I think it is so impactful that it just sticks with you. And as Nichijou this is produced by Kyoto Animation, something that I will not enter so much onto Kyoto Animation really in this episode, but Kyoto Animation, also known for Keio, for Melancholy of Suzumi Haruhida. I butchered that, I know that it's a different name, but whatever. Lucky Star, and as aforementioned Nichijou, the influence of the studio itself can be seen throughout the whole anime. So from the get-go, you can already see some traces of past series, and in itself it has the same sensibilities of comedy and stuff. With that said, and also something that I want to mention, the first season came out in, I think, January 2017 and ended in April 2017 with 13 episodes and I think 2 or 3 specials. I don't actually remember. The ongoing of the story and the vibe that it kind of gives, it does bring about something that I already reviewed some time ago, that is Senko-san, which began its run on October 2017. So I can't confirm this, it's just like inference, but I would guess that in some way Kobayashi-san had kind of inspiration role on terms of Senko-san's creation, somewhat, because both of those series work in, I would say, similar manners. As in Senko-san, we have Senko-san coming from heaven to help and be the ideal maid and stuff. Kobayashi-san, or better, Toru in this manner, comes from another world and ends up being the maid for Kobayashi-san. And even though let's say the process is not as smooth because Toru is pretty inexperienced in housework and stuff, the end goal or the result is kind of the same. So you take average salary worker, for the most part overworked and down on their luck, and now they have someone they live with that they care about, and that for better or for worse, they do their chores, they have a better structure at home, a better, I would say, familiar structure in some ways. And specifically for Senko-san, that ends up with them actually getting married, but it ends up being that Senko-san has a lot of beats similar to Kobayashi-san, and more than that, right? So in the first episode we see the introduction of Toru. The second episode we have the introduction of, and this is something that me specifically, I think that is the, I'll not say nail in the coffin because it's not the end of it, but it is the consolidation of the, let's say, familial structure, more or less. That would be the introduction of Kana Kamui, or the Dragon Lord that everybody loves. And a shout out to the VA, Naganawa Maria. She does an incredible job as Kana. The deadpan delivery plus the little reaction that she does, and these also aided by the little gags and stuff that the studio does with both the animation and art style. The introduction of Kana, I think, is the part that cements really the core of the anime itself, because from then on, and I think that it is not such a long shot to say this, but it becomes more or less the basis of Kobayashi-san becomes like the mother, and then Toru for the most part is the big sister, and Kana being the little sister, and the whole mechanic between the three of them is so cute. And I lack a better word for this because it's a wholesome thing where you see the family kind of structure going on, and in one way or another I think that you can kind of reflect that on your own life. And this is something that I think that watching this again as an adult has really gotten to me specifically, because I can now, let's say, see, not really myself because I don't have kids and stuff, but I can kind of see the charm in that, because as this, and specifically as the second episode goes on and kind of eventually grows up into not only living with Kobayashi and Toru, but also wanted to go to school and the other stuff that she eventually does in the rest of the series, including all the gags that she does with then Saikawa, who becomes her best friend, and the other stuff like later on she has the sports festival at school and other stuff. It has these really nice kind of feel to it, because she really becomes let's say that she really takes the role as a daughter, or in many ways, of both Kobayashi-san and Toru, though Toru is not really a motherly figure, I would say. For the most part, she really does become the big sister. And this is something that I think I didn't get the first time, and something that I want to highlight is that from the very beginning of the series, and this is something that I think later on they do it less or do it more subtly, but this series, although it is pretty wholesome, pretty lighthearted in most places, it kind of brings some questioning, some reflections on our life as a society in ways that I didn't actually think that they would. And it becomes this juxtaposition where everything is lighthearted, but whenever the characters actually stop to think about stuff and how they change because of other things, everything kind of comes into perspective. So what they do a lot at the beginning is questioning whether or not dragons can live with the humans. Obviously, they can't live on their normal forms because they have to transform into humans and stuff. But it also becomes the fact that at some point, they start to question the differences between humans itself, and then it projects towards this kind of thing where the anime itself starts to question. The story itself starts to question the ways that humans treat other humans and stuff, and in such a way I didn't actually think that they would do it. I know that at the beginning it is pretty prominent. The reflections really are more forefront. For the back end of the series, I think that as things get settled down, it becomes less of a thing, as the story becomes more important rather than the reflection. Though I would say that the reflections never really stop. They just don't throw it as forefront. So this is basically episode 2. Episode 3 and 4, I think we have the introduction to the other characters. Sorry about this part, because at this point I don't actually remember really the order of the episodes. There are so many segments in this anime and so many yonkomas in between that is kind of a mess. Though I would say that after the introduction of Kana, everything becomes so much cuter. She's the daughter, and that's the whole thing. Going through, let's say, to parrot, the newer audience that has maybe been introduced to this anime a bit later, after the more popular stuff that came out this past few years. The same feeling that the general Umamusume fandom has towards Urara, for Haru Urara, for example, is the same for Kana. She's the daughter, she's cute, and for the most part, most of her, let's say, not solo episodes, but the gags that only include her for the most part are really, really cute. There is, I think it's a yonkoma, if I'm not mistaken, or a split segment where she goes with her little pillow, search for the better spots in the house to sleep, to take a nap, and oh my god, it's so cute how she goes through the places and stuff. That, and also the little gags between wanting to go to school, buying the school material. Oh my god, the school material stuff is it's so wholesome. It's really cute. And in that same way, as I said before, even though the anime is pretty episodic, it does have the overarching plot. And towards the end of this anime, you can see that not only all of the characters kind of develop a bit, but you see in a really kind of, I would say, brisk way, due to how the ending is done, how much Kobayashi as the main character has changed. Even though her demeanor is the same, the attitude that she has towards life really changes from the beginning to the end. This is something that I will discuss when I discuss the ending, because I don't really like the ending, but there's that. So going through episode, I think 3 and 4, that are the last introductions of the whole cast. I think then the last introduction, I think it's on episode 7 or 8, maybe. 3 and 4, we have the introduction of Fafnir, aside from the main co-worker of Kobayashi-san, Takia. But Fafnir is a cursed dragon, as the translation goes. It's another deadpan delivery, but it's kind of different. He's really hostile at the beginning, and for that same reason of having these kind of deadpan delivery and stuff, he does not like demonstrate any emotions, but has this really hostile aura about him. Though eventually, and this is again, you can trace a parallel to Senko-san somewhat, that every one of Toru's friends that come from another world will end up with a human to support them, or end up living in society on their own, much like Shiro and the Tanuki Fukuda? I don't actually remember the name of the Tanuki for Senko-san, but it is the same kind of similar gig, where as more and more friends of Toru come from another world, they will end up with different humans. So, for instance, Fafnir ends up coming and ends up addicted to, not really, but gets embroiled in the otaku culture in terms of grinding MMOs, playing games, and even going to Comiket and getting his work fopped. But anyways, he ends up living with the co-worker of Kobayashi, that is Takia, and both of them live their own life. It is, let's say, implicit that they live in their own terms. It is not, it does not live to the same, let's say, family unit style of Kobayashi, but it is one of the lives ever. And for the most part, for everything that we see throughout the anime, and we can confirm through it, both of them really like the way that they live. So Fafnir, for the most part, is outright Nito, so he does not work and stuff, and just play games every day, all day. Whereas Takia has this, I would say, the kind of normal otaku obligation of having to have these two different sides between himself. So on one side, inside he has to be a functional adult when he's talking about work and going to work and stuff. And whenever he's outside of work, he can become his otaku self, where he can be weird and talk weird and do weird stuff. And that's the I think some of us can relate to that in many ways, and I think in some ways it's something that really flashes out a different way of living, let's say. The next one then to be introduced is Lukua, or Quetzalcoatl, but they somehow get this shortened to Lukua. Lukua lives with another little kid called Shota, because apparently Shota is the son of a family of mages, and he tries to summon a demon, but actually Lukua just like got called first and then started living with him because whatever. And this does not ever get really explained, and just like rushed off to the side, because really the details are really not really important. And this is something that I will say, I cannot confirm this also. This is only inference from my side, and again, I cannot really confirm this anywhere, but this comes from me reading Chichi, which is also written by the same author, Kukyo Shinja. I'm pretty sure, and again, I think Chichi can at the very least be used as evidence to my claim that the situation between Shota and Lukua is the self-insert of the author. I'm not saying that this is 100% true, but if you see this, and because easy to say, right? Kukyo Jinja, he does not hide his preferences anywhere, really. He writes his stuff. His art style is, I would say, not to everyone, really. And in many ways, I have to praise Kyoto Animation for not only finding his work to adapt, but also how they rounded out the art style to an anime form really becomes a thing that you need to praise. Because if you really go and kind of try to read Kobayashi-san, or even Chichi for that matter, you see that, I'll not say disparity, but you see the difference between the two art styles that they use. And in many ways, you see that the studio kind of gave a bit more of better appeal to the series in many ways, because and this is coming this is not to criticize the art, really. I'm not saying the art's bad, and mind you, I don't actually think that I could ever say any art is bad, really. But I would say that the art of the original art from the manga is not for everyone. It is something that is really heavily stylized for a simpler art style, and really I can see a lot of people jumping off the series because of how rough, air quotes here, rough the art seems. But the studio really rounded out and made it appealing for more people, and in that sense I think it's better in that way. Brings more people to actually watch the anime and eventually buy the manga if they like. But also, right, so coming back to it, Lukua and Shota, I'm pretty sure is the self-insert of the author. Chichi is basically the situation of Lukua and Shota throughout the whole manga, so I'm pretty sure this was the first self-insert. Basically, Lukua has a really huge rack, and the whole gag on... And this is something that has went into prominence a bit after this series came out, I think in the late 2019 maybe, and has kind of fallen off a little bit. That is the gag between having a Shota and how do I say this without actually sounding really bad? Really stacked girl and a Shota, basically. I'll leave it at that, but basically the situation is that, and for the most part the whole gag with the two of them is always Lukua trying to have a normal conversation and not really trying anything, but it always ends up with the connotation, and then Shota like running from her and stuff, so much so that the other, let's say the opposite of this gag is the fact that Kobayashi is self-aware about the fact that she's not as feminine as some other girls, and Toru for the most part is the one that not really teases her about it, but really is the one that brings this up more and more. And as the story goes, the two of them will develop this more and more, to the point where when they go to the beach, Shota runs to Kobayashi because she's less tempting, let's say. Mind you, Shota has he's like 11, 12 maybe. Anyways, so basically these are the introductions to the 4th episode, and throughout this we'll see a whole lot of wholesome stuff, going through every one of the characters. You see, and this is something that goes on for a bit, that as Toru and Kobayashi go through things together, and kind of included, they will develop a bit. Lukua is, for one, the one that really demonstrates how worried both her and Fafnir are worried about Toru leaving in another world and stuff. She will frequently ask Kobayashi if she likes Toru, if Toru is doing okay and stuff. And for the most part, it really becomes this really nice net of friends and family, and this kind of unit where everybody lives their own lives, but also has to deal with everyday things. So Kana going through school and actually making friends and developing herself and doing all the little school stuff. And then in the counterpart, Kobayashi kind of becoming this guardian for her, the motherly figure. And this is something that becomes more apparent towards the end of the series specifically. And this is something that me specifically, I lost it every time. I lost it every time. It is so fucking cute. I cannot really explain this, but the segment where they talk about the sports meet, it's such a great thing, really. How Kobayashi goes through the part where she doesn't really see the importance of it, to then actually understanding the importance to the child, to Kana, and then she crunching herself in order to meet the deadline and actually go to the sports meet and stuff. It is so nice to see. It's such a heartwarming stuff, and the feeling it leaves me with is that this was really written to be this kind of cathartic kind of thing, and in many ways I really like it that way, though. It is really sugary. If you don't like the really cutesy stuff, I can see someone not liking the series, but to me at the very least, it is something that I really can get behind. It's something that I really find nice. It's something that I watch anime for. It is pretty fulfilling in that way. And then the last character that is introduced, the last, let's say, supporting ever staying character that is introduced is Elma. Elma is dragon that is, let's say, Toru's rival in the other world, let's say, and she comes up as a kind of police trying to get Toru out of our world to go back to the original world and stuff. And her introduction is pretty messy, all things considered, because it becomes kind of somewhat clear that Toru, even though they may be, let's say, comparable in strength for the most part, Toru has a very, let's say, a bit of an upper hand, only because she has a bit more malice within her. So for instance, right, the first time they actually meet in the anime, Toru shits her to basically be teleported to another continent, and then she has to travel the whole way back to find Toru again and stuff. And this goes on throughout the whole anime somewhat. Elma is teased for the most part throughout the whole series, for the time that she stays there, due to this demeanor of always trying to do her best, but being utterly incapable of really doing anything depending on the task, because she has, and this is the thing, right? She's so prideful that she cannot admit to herself that she cannot do something. So for the most part, she does try to work hard towards a goal, but more times than not, she ends up kind of face planting into the pavement, for lack of a better expression. Though for the most part, I think that she's a nice supporting character for the most part. She gets introduced a bit too late, I think, to have any real impacts overall, though it is the introductions are kind of cute and stuff, and the whole thing is pretty nice. That being said, right, so that's the story basically. We have all these dragons living in our world and having these weird experiences and wholesome moments. I think that for the most part throughout the whole of the first 11 episodes, there's no segment where I felt like it was bad. I think every single one of the little stories that the anime tells us have their value, even though maybe just wholesome cutesy stuff for the whole like yonkoma and stuff. I think that it does have its value overall. And here's the thing, right? So the line of this kind of slice of life, I think it's not only the comedy that it brings, but also the small moments, the way that as the story progresses, you can see the characters kind of evolving and growing up. As I said before, specifically with Kobayashi, you can see her transition from someone who lives alone and lives a rather lonely life to someone who at the end of the anime is surrounded by friends and at this point family, and really gets to have this family unit built around her, where she has Toru as her main support and has to take care of Kana, even though she doesn't really have, let's say, take care of Kana. Really, Kana becomes the daughter figure in this way because she needs to learn how to live humans, and also because it is mentioned from the very beginning that Kana is in dragon terms younger and has had a more hands-free approach to upbringing from her original parents, so she has the tendency to cling to Kobayashi as the motherly figure, and everything that does happen is really nice and stuff. Now, talking about and this is a tangent that I need to bring up from, and this happens more towards the initial phase of the anime, so the first 3-4 episodes, I think that. And sometimes when Toru and Elma kind of duke it out. But this anime is not an action anime by any stretch. But whenever, let's say, the dragons go out to play, go all out to play, the studio just shifts into second gear and just says, yeah, so we're going to animate a really nice fighting scene just because. And it is really weird. And here's the thing, right? So the delivery from Kobayashi-san, or her VA, Tamura Matsumi, it's so incredible because it is the real, I think it's the real reaction of a human towards what happens, because they start flying and like shooting beams out of their mouths and stuff. It is really nice to watch. It's really, really nice to watch. And the whole thing kind of goes throughout the episodes of multiple episodes, actually. I know that the first time I think is between Toru and Kana, because they want to actually play all out and stuff, and so they start sparring and they go through another continent to do that. And then I think later on I think episode 4, episode 5, when the dragons have to play against kids on dodgeball because the kids threaten Kana and Saikawa. I think that was the setup basically, and basically they destroy the whole park and stuff. The one thing that, and I think that this is not a conscious choice by the author, but a really nice way to tie up everything, is that all of the dragons know a lot of magic, and for one reason or another, Toru is the strongest dragon there is between them, and she just like, oh, I can just cast a spell and everything's back to normal. Like, ties up everything and nothing ever changes, even though it does, but you know. And I think it's really nice in that way that we have this juxtaposition, because 99% of the time the anime is just cutesy stuff, right? And this 1% of the time when the studio chooses to actually get down to business, they actually animate really nice action scenes, which then basically it's a whole nother anime at that point. But with that said, right, so I need to talk about the ending, and oh my god, here's the thing, right? So I don't like the ending, because, and I don't know if this does happen in the manga because I have not read the whole manga, but I don't like the ending because it is the worst fake out ever made, and it wrecks me every fucking time, because the whole setup of the whole anime is to have Kobayashi-san and Toru there in the house living with Kana, and both of them work together to live a prosperous life. Kobayashi-san has to work every day. She has to also take care of Kana in terms of parenting, and Toru does house chores and does stuff and cooks and whatever, while Kana has to just be a child at the beginning, at a really small child, so she does not have any responsibilities at the beginning and stuff other than the responsibilities of school and homework and the things that they do at school. So cutting the part where Japanese school systems it's kind of weird with kids, so they have to serve their own lunch and stuff. But then, for one reason or another, at the end of the 11th episode, I think, they do these really quick, like, foreshadowing of something coming for Toru specifically. And in the 12th episode, this anime has 13 episodes, sorry. In the 13th episode, out of nowhere, Toru's dad comes up, says, I'm taking you back to the other world, and just takes Toru. And the implication that, oh my god, the moment when Kana comes home and just says to Kobayashi that Toru has gone back to the original world and is not coming back, Kobayashi's reaction, and I think that everybody had, at the very least, if you I don't know, the adults, I think. Anyways, everybody had this at some point in their life. Had this kind of moment when someone breaks news for them and their whole world just falls apart. And in that sense, I think that the reaction that they give Kobayashi is such an adult answer for it. It's such a realistic thing. And then we bring the part where there's dragons and stuff, but at that point it is not the fact that they are dragons, because for the most part they're just humans, right? So they live amongst us and stuff. But the reaction that they give her, and cut up to the Simpsons meme where look up please, you can see the exact moment when his heart breaks in half. That reaction that she has when Kana breaks the news for her, it's such a human emotion, such a real reaction for something like that, because at that point you can already imagine what's going through her head. You can already see she going through the 7 stages of grief in a split second, and then she trying to cope with it and trying to plan ahead and looking like what the hell I'm going to do now, and everything that is implied in that. And it goes on through in a way that it is only natural. It's the let's say logical progression of what you would think that happens. So there's the implication that it takes weeks, if not months, to Toru to come back. But for the most part, from then on, Kobayashi has to adapt and work basically as a single mother, and she's really inexperienced at it. And you see throughout the whole montage of her living only with Kana that she adapts. She ends up teaching Kana how to work the rice cooker and other stuff, how both of them adapt to their new situation and stuff. And in that way, it does show the strength of Kobayashi to adapt, and also the way that everything kind of works out at the end. But then out of nowhere, Toru comes back, and in that one moment, Kobayashi actually has the one happy moment, and then it is cut up, and because Toru's dad comes back to take her again, and then they have this huge fight, and Kobayashi interferes and stuff, and then her dad just leaves, just forfeits the match, whatever. He just gives up on fighting her, and then the anime ends on that. Like Toru comes back, and then they live happily ever after. Not the ending itself is not great, but I don't think that they needed to implicate that much tension, because at the end of the day, it's a fake out either way. Because okay, like you took some months off, and life was kind of shit because Kobayashi is someone that really takes her time to come back home, so she can not cook. And even though that she teaches Kana how to do stuff, it is not the same. Like, you put stakes on to not have actual stakes in it, and then it becomes this kind of mess. And I hate this ending. Like, it wrecks me emotionally, and I cry every time I watch this. What can I say? But it is an emotional wreck of an episode. It does fake out a whole lot of stuff because you think that there is like going to be a continuation where Toru is not around, but at the same time Toru is the main character of the series outside of Kobayashi, and so why did you need to actually put this tension at the end of the anime? I don't understand. And for that, I hate this end. For the end of season build up, I hate this kind of thing. I hate whenever it is not meant to have. For instance, right? So I have been reviewing a lot of sports anime on Uma Musume or some shonen adjacent kind of anime and kind of other stuff in that sense, where tension is conflict is part of the narrative. Conflict is part of the appeal of the series. You want to see the conflict going on to watch the series because the action scenes are the greatest, the tension is the greatest and stuff, and the stakes are kind of real, even though most times the series that I view the stakes are not there, but I'll not enter that. But the thing is, right, this whole series is based around this cutesy wholesome kind of stuff, and the action scenes are great when they're played out, but they don't actually have any stakes in them, because every time that they spar is really amicable, really friendly stuff. But then you grab this wholesome pile of cutesy stuff that I love, and then you put some kind of tension into it because out of nowhere, because of whatever, and don't actually explain it and don't put stakes on it. Like, what the fuck did you actually do? And me laughing off this thing. So, do not leave these at a bad note for the end. For this review, I didn't actually watch the whole of the specials. I just know that they are adorable, and I really recommend everybody to watch it. This anime itself, and for in extension the manga, I really recommend everybody to watch it and read it. If you prefer just watch it, I will watch the second season. Most likely it will be awesome too, but I really recommend this one. The anime itself is really nice. All the little things, the little details, not only the visual gags, the jokes and stuff, but the situation that they put the characters in, and the little story threads develop, and how each of the characters react to stuff, and the relations that they build and stuff. It is a really nice experience, really heartwarming stuff. If you want something comfy to watch, something really down to earth, really is kind of silly, not really important, not really something that you need to get preoccupied by, worried, a cliffhanger stuff. If you want something comfy to watch, I really recommend you to go to Kobayashi-san. It is a really nice series done by an amazing studio, written by an amazing author. I cannot, and this is something that came to me through watching again the opening. The opening is so iconic in itself. If you were there back in 2017 when this came out, it is really iconic. It is oh my god, I forgot the damn name of the Elk anime. Anyways, it's the original, somewhat shitposty opening with the little dance that you do at the beginning, and I really do recommend it. It's really nice, from animation to art to music. It is really nice. Whole presentation also. Presentation is something that maybe I didn't really bring so much up throughout the review, but presentation in this sense in this anime is really well done. They do from shot composition to other stuff, the way that they do the drawings, change the art style from time to time, and other stuff. Really nice work, and I really recommend it. Again, if you want something comfy, something nice to watch, try Kobayashi-san Maid Dragon. Really nice. And with that said, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, please share, please follow, depending on the platform you're in. And I hope to stick around for next time. Bye.